people, my name is Nicole and today I want to talk about Alex Approximately by Jenn Bennett. I do want to acknowledge, yes, my copy is an ARC. No, I did not get it from the publisher, I got it from a friend. I have not had any contact with the publisher whatsoever. But this is an ARC, so if there are any changes that have been made to the finished copy, I can't account for those. So this first section will be spoiler free, so if you have not read the book yet, don't worry, it just came out on Tuesday. So I won't spoil anything in this first section, and then I'll warn you once I do get into the more spoilery things. So if you don't know what this book is about, it's about this girl named Bailey who is a total classic film buff, and she's stricken up this friendship online with this guy named Alex. And Bailey lives in DC, Alex lives in California, so they've never met in person. They don't even know each other's real names. Bailey goes by Mink online, but they've been talking about wanting to meet up. There's this film festival in Alex's hometown, and they've been talking about wanting to maybe meet up and actually like meet each other in person. And Bailey's dad lives over there, so they've been thinking maybe now might be a good time to take their friendship offline. And Bailey actually ends up moving to his hometown because she moves in with her dad. And she plans to spend the summer sort of trying to see if she can sneakily figure out who he is just by the clues that he's given her in his messages, and then surprise him at the film festival. But she ends up having to work a summer job at this museum where one of her co-workers is sort of that stereotypical, like he's really hot but he's kind of a jerk, and they strike up this kind of antagonistic relationship. So my overall thoughts were that this was super cute. It did play into a number of tropes, but like it did it in that really great fluffy gooey romance novel kind of way. So like it wasn't a bad kind of playing into tropes. I felt like the relationship developed so naturally, and it was such a great like hate to love kind of relationship build. Porter, the guy who works with Bailey at the museum, is super swoon worthy, and I mean I fell in love with him while reading. I felt like the film buff aspect was there just the right amount. I feel like a lot of times in books the main characters are given sort of interests to make them interesting and quirky or whatever, but then they're either overdone so you get like super tired and you're like, I get it, you like to play piano, whatever, or as soon as the actual plot starts, their interests are just kind of forgotten and thrown to the side and you never hear about them again. But this one I feel like was the perfect balance. It was there, it was sort of a constant presence, but it wasn't annoying. I loved all the supporting cast of characters. They were charming and lovely, and the setting of the Californian boardwalk was great. There were sort of a lot of different elements to the story that all came together. There was the museum, and Porter's a surfer, and then there's the classic movie stuff, and then there's all this like really deep emotional stuff that kind of comes up. And I do want to give a trigger warning for gun violence in this. It doesn't get super graphic, but there is discussion of it. Also, if you have a thing about sharks, that does come up a couple times. Like I said, Porter's a surfer, so the subject does arise. Really, my main issue was that there was a bit of a conflict due to lack of communication, which is one of my pet peeves in books. But for the most part, I could understand why they weren't communicating, and the frustration really only came in towards the end. And also, it wasn't like the only conflict in the book, so that made it slightly better. Overall, I did really love this. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I am going to go into a little bit more spoilery detail now, so if you have not read the book, go read it and then come back when you're ready to chat spoilers. So when it comes to spoilery stuff, first of all, I want to talk about the thing. I said that the only thing that frustrated me was the lack of communication, which, yeah, it was frustrating. I can understand why it didn't like occur to Bailey that Porter might be Alex until the end. Although I do think that there were enough clues dropped to sort of make it entertaining for the reader and help the reader figure it out. But it was a little frustrating when Porter found out that like Bailey was Mink and he just like waited for her to talk to him instead of talking to her about it. It was frustrating. It was like really frustrating. I just hate lack of communication based conflict. It frustrates me to no end. But I can understand why she wouldn't think that this guy who she sort of had this bickery, antagonistic, a little bit, very like heated relationship with would be this super sweet film buff that she's been talking to online. I can understand that. But honestly, I think the thing that frustrates me most isn't actually about the novel, it's about the synopsis. and kind of the title. The synopsis says the whole thing, gives the whole spiel about how, you know, she moves to Alex's hometown and starts working at a museum and starts up this relationship with this guy who sort of drives her crazy, and then it ends with, but Porter is Alex, approximately. And I'm like, what the fuck? I read that and assumed that that reveal would happen fairly early on, because like when you put something in the synopsis, that's supposed to be like the setup of the book, not the big reveal that happens in like the last 10 pages. What the hell? You literally spoiled the entire book in the synopsis. Don't do that. Also, I don't get the whole approximately thing. There was no approximation. Alex is Porter. Porter is Alex. There wasn't any like, kind of. He wasn't like ghostwriting for someone else. He wasn't like having someone type it for him. I don't understand the approximately. He wasn't approximate. He was. It's one of those little things that's just driving me insane. Moving on from that, I will say that I do really appreciate it that it delved into some really much deeper conflict. The whole thing that Porter had with his fear of sharks and his reservations about surfing after his attack, I think were really poignant and was a really good representation of sort of phobias and anxiety. And I like that Bailey wasn't the one who like cured him of his fear, and it was amazing. Like he was already making really good progress towards getting better and surfing more and more aggressively and trying to get over his fear of sharks. But she was the one who just kind of gave him that extra push, which I really appreciate. And then I think Bailey's fear of guns was, first of all, like, what a heavy storyline. I did not expect that at all, but I think it was done really well. I feel like I should have called, I can't remember his name right now, but Porter's friend, the sort of antagonist one, coming back in the end, but like, for some reason it just never occurred to me. So that took me completely by surprise. And the fact that like he would like bring a gun, like what the hell, dude? Oh, that was just so much. I do love that sort of both Porter and Bailey got their chance to sort of conquer their fears in the end. I also love, and I think this may have been one of my favorite moments of the book, when Grace sort of confronted Bailey about the fact that, you know, as soon as she started dating Porter, she kind of just dropped Bailey, because that's such a common trope in books, especially in YA. And like, don't think I'm slamming YA, I'm not, I love YA. But like, it is a common thing that the main character has a best friend in the beginning, and then as soon as they get into the main plot, whether that be a romance or some big dramatic adventure, they just kind of forget about their best friend. And like, they'll be in one or two other scenes, I don't know, providing sage advice or whatever, but they're just swept to the side. And I really love that Grace confronted Bailey about that and made Bailey kind of step back and be like, shit, I am doing that, I am being a shitty friend. Alright, let's make a standing breakfast date. Let's make sure that we like commit to keeping our friendship alive, because that's important. Also, and I'm not sure if this one was so much a subversion of a trope so much as an acknowledgement of it, the thing with Bailey's mom. I expected there to be more resolution, but I kind of like that there wasn't. The fact that once Bailey moved across country, her mom kind of stopped talking to her, and it wasn't like a direct, like, I'm never talking to you again kind of thing. It was just like a, she just never reached out. And I think that's another thing that's really common in YA. The parents just disappear once everything starts, and especially if you have a moving across the country to live with someone else, like that kind of thing, the parents definitely disappear. And I really like that they acknowledged that and talked about how that was a problem. And she and her dad got to have a really cute moment about it, which I really love. And the last thing I want to talk about is Bailey and Porter's relationship, because it was so cute. First of all, what a great build. It started from, they were like antagonistic enough to each other to make it a hate to love kind of thing, which like is totally my weakness. But they weren't antagonistic so much towards each other that I couldn't believe that they would fall for each other. And I love that once they actually got into a relationship, once they actually became friends, became more than friends, they stayed a little bit bickery with each other, not in a bad way, just in a like, they challenge each other, and they talked about this in the book, but they both respect each other's opinions, and they both have very strong opinions, and so they debate a lot. They go back and forth. They have this great dynamic that makes them so interesting to read about. And it's not just a, oh, you're so pretty, oh, you're so pretty, great, let's make out kind of thing. They challenge each other. They sort of fit into each other like puzzle pieces, and each of them has their own thing. They have this commonality with the movies, but then each of them has their own thing that they sort of come together and appreciate each other's thing, and it's really cute. And also the forced to stay together overnight thing, another one of my favorite tropes, most commonly seen in fanfic, and I am just so happy that it's in a real book, and it was adorable. Overall, I just really loved this. It was so cute, so much fun, exactly what I wanted when I picked it up. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I mean, it wasn't the most amazing, like, speaks to my soul kind of book, but it was so much fun, and I very much enjoyed reading it, and I highly recommend that if for some reason you're at the end of the spoilery part and you still haven't picked it up, you should pick it up because it's great, even though I just spoiled everything for you. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys think of this book in the comments because I really enjoyed it and I love to chat with you guys about it. I love you guys and I'll see you later.